In every society, there are high value, high status people and lower status people, and then there's the very bottom. In ancient Judea, the high status people, of course, were the priests, the Sanhedrin, the Pharisees, and those of the certain tribes of Israel. The Levites. Levi was one of the 12 children of Jacob, and the tribes were named after the 10 sons of Jacob and the 2 adopted sons of Jacob. So the Levites, Levites, that was the tribe of Moses. So those were a very high status people. The people of other areas were low status, and the lowest of the low were the Samaritans and the Samarians and the Hittites and Egyptians. Those in that order: Samaritans, Sumerians, Hittites, and Egyptians. Sumerians were slavers, Hittites were slavers, and Egyptians, because we know about Egyptians, right? The Egyptians, even though it was more than 15 centuries earlier that they had enslaved the Jews, they were still hated. So the Samaritans, because they were just a poor, kind of icky people, they would be the equivalent of the current trailer trash, for lack of a better phrase. So I'm going to take today's gospel and bring it up to the 21st century. A young black woman fell victim to muggers as she walked home from work one night in any city, USA. She was very tired from the long bus ride, and she still had to walk about a mile to her 3-story walk-up apartment. The thieves beat her, and rather than stop there, they stripped and started to rape her, only running off when another bus stopped just feet away, and they ran off, leaving her mostly naked and half dead, badly beaten about the head, and the pocketbook open beside her. A biracial teen girl was the first to step off that bus and saw what was happening. But other than checking that the pocketbook was empty, she did nothing to assist this young woman and just went on her way. The next person to come along was a black man, wearing the full muslin garb, but carrying a bottle of alcohol hidden in his pocket. "You okay, sister?" he drunkenly asked to the barely conscious woman. "You want me to call you an Uber or something?" He laughed as he tripped over her legs and then went off. None of the apartment dwellers that had heard her cries had called the police for her. No one had called for help for her. A few minutes later, a Jewish man wearing full Hasidic curls and scrolls came upon our girl. He saw what the others had seen but had not reacted to. The hijab scarf torn aside, baring her head and her upper breast, and violating her worse than any attempted rape. He cried aloud at the sight of her faith being so destroyed, and he quickly called an ambulance and police, pledging to remain with her for every second. "My girl, I won't leave you alone for 1 second." And before anyone arrived, he took the torn hijab and covered her bareness, so that the DNA would not be altered by him placing his coat atop, but he needed to shield her. He then stood in front of her, between her and the street, with his coat open, exposing his faith to all, which is not done in Hasidic Judaism. But then, as he says to himself, that the God of my fathers would not have forgiven me for standing there covered with her, so exposed to all the eyes driving by. Police arrived 9 excruciating minutes later, during which time he sang to her, talked to her, and let her know she was never, ever alone. The officers had a sterile blanket, so they were able to cover her. So Abe, our gentleman, with their permission and a sterile pair of gloves from them, sat down on the ground next to Aaliyah's head. "Is that her name? Have you found her ID?" one of the officers asked. "No," Abe replied. "Her pocketbook is over there. But she looks like an Aaliyah. It means beauty of spirit." So she was Aaliyah until they later identified her as Nadia. But to Abe, she would forever be Aaliyah. Abe rode with Aaliyah to the hospital and stayed by her side. She was now gripping his hand throughout the night. She wouldn't let go of her grandpa savior, as she called him, and he would not let go of his Aaliyah until the doctors said she was safe and she would not die. They completed the horrific SAE, sexual assault exam kit, an exam with Abe murmuring quietly to Aaliyah Nadia to keep her calm. "We will be able to catch them. We have samples of hair from multiple contributors," the forensic investigator told them. "You did a good job, Abe, covering her with her own hijab. Not anything new." "Aaliyah Nadia, you covered me up while I was lying there," she whispered. Abe said, "It was bad enough they had exposed your head and your breast from the hijab, my daughter, but I could not stand by and allow you to be bare when you had your cover right there. Not when our God requires love and care to be shown to all humans. I even held my coat open and stood in front of you for 9 minutes to further limit your exposure. It was the least I could do for you, for a child of such faith." Aaliyah Nadia said, "I don't know how to thank you. I know what that means in your faith." Abe said, "Don't worry about that, or about any bills from this day either. I know you have no insurance because you kept saying it in the ambulance. Whatever the Crime Victims Fund doesn't cover, I will pay. I have no children or family anymore, so it's my blessed honor to care for such a blessed one as you." Then there was a racket in the doorway as a group burst in. "Abba, Mama!" cried Nadia, meaning father, and Mommy in Arabic. "This is my grandpa savior, Abe. He covered me with my hijab so I would be protected and not seen, and no evidence destroyed," she explained. "And called for help, stood in front of me, protect me with his own body until police arrived, and hasn't left me alone since. I would have been so frightened without him singing and talking to me all these hours. Oh, my own grandpa now," she cried. Mahmoud, Nadia, Aaliyah's father, thanked Abe for all he had done. "But you, a Sidgajud," he said, "and she a Muslim?" Abe said, "She is a daughter of faith, a child of God. That must always be honored and recognized whenever you see it. We are all of one God. We just call him by different ancient names. When my children were killed, they were not alone, or so I comfort myself with that belief." "Miriam," Nadia, Aaliyah's mother, asked, "what happened to your children and family?" Abe answered, "They all died on 11 September 2001 at work. One was a firefighter. 2 were stock traders. My wife had died of breast cancer just 2 years prior to that. All gone. So this was a chance for God to say, save another's baby for them. And so I'm glad the God of my fathers gave me this chance. I can feel my David, My Levi, Rebecca, and my beloved Rita so proud, smiling down on their Abe today. Nadia, Aaliyah, Sid, and my Abe now too. Thanks be to our God. May the prophet be praised. Now, who are your neighbors? Who will show you mercy?